Alright, we can add Mark Zuckerberg to the long list of billionaires who have straight up bent the knee to Donald Trump over the last month after he came out with an announcement today that he is restructuring the entire fact-checking mechanism of Facebook to be more like Elon Musk's X. Not only will this make my job harder because there's another platform that I now have to push back against, but also there are a lot of broader implications for global democracy, domestic democracy, public discourse, even Mark Zuckerberg's own company that I want to break down. So we'll watch his statement in 1 second, but before we even jump into this, I want to lay the groundwork by reading this post that I'll link in the description below. It reads, "Zuck bows to Trump. Freedom of speech or the road to chaos." This breaks the situation down perfectly, and it starts, Zuck comes to Trump on his knees, and it's very bad news. He announces a radical reduction in censorship on his own platforms, Facebook and Instagram, a reduction in restrictions on issues like gender or immigration. We'll probably never guess where the choices of these issues came from. And also, let me loosely translate, quote, support for President Trump in putting pressure on world governments that attack American companies and seek further censorship. He also said that the last election made him realize how important freedom of speech is. This guy is 40 years old, but just in November of 2024, he experienced a catharsis on the issue. Why did this happen? We'll probably never know. So another Silicon Baron joins the right-wing populace with authoritarian aspirations. Another billionaire becomes Trump's, quote, representative of the excluded. More platforms, a modest 3 billion users on Facebook and 2 billion users on Instagram, plus 300 million on Threads, stand behind anti-establishment Trumpism. Again, billions and billions of people. These people who are worth billions and billions are all apparently the anti-establishment. It's normal to get teary-eyed as people organize from the bottom up to support the orange man in his lonely battle against the alienated elites like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. Obviously, we're being tongue-in-cheek during that line. More platforms will turn into an even bigger sewer. They will enable more violence, more hate speech, more disinformation. More billions of people will be hit in the face more often with extremism, conspiracy theories, and nonsense that insults reason and broadly works to erode our democratic norms. As if their algorithm did not encourage this enough already, another oligarch will play politics and influence world governments. As if Musk, who calls for the overthrow of democratic governments, hanging traitors, and says that we need a new Sola is not enough. Sola, I remind you, was a dictator. Views we tend to associate with fringe lunatics like Grzegorz Braun or Oslansky come from the mouth of one of the most powerful men in the world, Elon Musk, who makes no secret his desire for power and control. Unlike Braun, Elon Musk has the means to realize his sick visions. Now, Zuck will join him. As someone who has had visibility on Facebook restricted 3 times out of nowhere, I'm the first to say that their algorithm works like a blind butcher swinging a meat cleaver at random. Yes, there is no appeals process on the platform. Yes, you can be banned for nothing. Seriously, this isn't 2009 when you could naively believe that social media platforms couldn't really be used for evil. Dozens of articles have been written on the subject. We have well over a decade of experience with online disinformation. Anyone can access accounts with millions of followers that are almost exclusively spreading disinformation, and absolutely nothing happens to them. We know that platforms can be used for evil, and now it will be even more so. That is a great breakdown of what is happening, and it really highlights the erosion of accountability in these digital spaces, which shows that the onus is on us to push back against that. And I want to play a few parts of Mark Zuckerberg's video in 1 second, but first, I want to show you some key moments of my Fox News hit this morning. I went on Fox News DC. They asked me some questions. It didn't get too heated, but there's some key answers that I give that show why Mark Zuckerberg is making a mistake. And also, I just shit on Donald Trump while I'm on Fox News, which is always kind of funny. Let me play this clip and then I'll commentate.
On his list, tax cuts, we're talking immigration policies, and so much more. What do you make of this?
You know, if Donald Trump can propose a plan for healthcare that's beyond a concept, I think Democrats should get behind it, but we haven't seen that yet. All we've seen is him using rhetoric about tariffs. He just gave a speech less than an hour ago talking about Greenland and the Panama Canal, and he was asked, would you use military or economic coercion to help get these? And he said, yes, I would use both. I would use both of those. So what I make of it is that Congress will likely create the permission structure for Donald Trump to take this as far as he can, and I think the confirmation of people like Pete Hegseth or people like Tulsi Gabbard will be a good test to see where Congress stands. But after that, I just hope that they can act as a check that they're supposed to act as. I mean, Congress was meant as a check for the president, but it's gotten so backwards where now they blindly support all of his agendas. So, I mean, to go back to what I said, if this dude has a healthcare plan, then sure, let's get behind it. But if this dude is only going to talk about tariffs and posturing towards Greenland, then we'll have to keep him in check.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this unfolds. Meanwhile, according to Trump, Biden is making that transition, where they have one president, he leaves and another one comes in, that whole transition thing. Well, according to Trump, he's making it really hard for him. However, we know that history has shown that Trump did the same for Biden. In essence, he has made it harder than any sitting president that we know of. And so with that being said, it's kind of, well, I guess he's giving him his own stuff.
Yeah, I don't even think Biden is making it hard. Biden invited Trump to the White House. He executed the transition perfectly. It's funny because people were saying yesterday, I'm sure Kamala's crying that she has to certify her own loss. No, she's not crying. She's the one that certified it like an adult. Meanwhile, Donald Trump 4 years ago whined, and now we're even 4 years past, he still says that election was stolen. So Democrats are the ones that have been upholding the norms, upholding the rule of law. President Biden directly invited Trump to the White House. They shook hands, they were cordial, and now Trump is trying to project. I feel like we overuse the word projection with Trump, but he is so very clearly trying to muddy the waters and flood the zone to the degree where people won't even know who tried to stop the transition of the peaceful transfer of power. It was very clearly the Republicans 4 years ago. And people like Ben Shapiro, all these Republican politicians said it was disgusting the day after. Ben Shapiro said verbatim, this is probably the worst thing to happen domestically since 9/11. And 4 years later, he's blind and covering his eyes. So.
All right. Well, yet again, very interesting. Let's move on to Meta, which, by the way, is getting rid of fact checkers. Mark Zuckerberg acknowledged more harmful content will now appear on the platforms now. Your thoughts on this?
I think that the way he proposed it, as in we need community notes and stuff like that. I mean, I'm okay with community notes. I think that that's a good idea, but he also said he wants to make it more like Twitter in general, which number one should scare any investor in Facebook. If you're an investor in Facebook, didn't Elon Musk take down the worth of Twitter like 80, 90%, something like that? But if you're just going to allow the unfettered spreading of any sort of AI slop content, that's not good. That is what happens on Twitter a lot. But if you're going to actually enact the content moderation that you want, that could be okay. It just depends on how he actually ends up executing this. I thought it was interesting that he said he's going to move the team from California to Texas to instill more trust in people.
Yeah.
But that just seems like going from a blue state to a red state. Wouldn't you want to put it in a more moderate state if you actually want to instill trust or seem bipartisan?
We're going to stay in the world of social media. In this case, we're talking TikTok, which really that...
Okay, I'll cut it off right there, but broadly speaking, the last point that I made is a really crucial one. Mark Zuckerberg says in this video that he is going to move the team from California, a deeply blue state, to Texas because he wants it to seem more moderate, which seems like the opposite. It's kind of a microcosm of this whole shift. He's completely shifting this, the rules of the platform. And the reason why I said at the beginning of that interview that I'm okay with, on the surface, wanting more community notes or more sort of fact-checking mechanisms, but that's not really what's happening. When I'm speaking in sound bites on the TV, I only have a certain amount of time to say what I think. So the broad point is, on the surface, if you want to say, hey, we love free speech, we love fact-checking, on the surface, yeah, that's fine. But when he then says he wants to make it more like Twitter, that's not the kind of free speech that we want. The unfettered allowance of slop, of bigotry, of everything. Let's go to what he says about restoring or restructuring the fact-checking mechanism.
First, we're going to get rid of fact-checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
Community notes aren't always bad, but they are easily gamed as well. I think community notes are oftentimes good, but I mean, more often than not, there's just a snarky comment in the community notes rather than some actual helpful fact-checking.
After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy.
It is.
We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
This is clearly him curtailing his behavior to fit Donald Trump. And sorry to pause it, but I really quickly want to point out something important. Donald Trump has raised over $200 million after his election. Since his victory in November, President-elect Donald J. Trump and his allies have raised over $200 million for a constellation of groups that will fund his inauguration. Even this says he has raised $200 million since the election as CEOs and corporations line up to smash inauguration records. Do you think this is because Mark Zuckerberg really cares about inaugurations and the presidential transition? No, it's a way of currying favor with Donald Trump. It's a way of donating to him indirectly. Let's go back and watch a little bit more of this Mark Zuckerberg clip.
So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender.
Immigration and gender, where did those two topics come from?
That are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
You guys hear like the vague right-wing talking points here. It's not like he's going full mask off. This is what they do. This dude's not going to come out and ever say something in particular about immigration or trans issues, but he sort of hints towards it. We need more free speech about immigration and about trans issues. I reject the idea that there's not any free speech or that there's not enough free speech about trans issues right now. We've seen people voice very loud opinions about trans issues on both sides. People who are the farthest left of the activists and the farthest right, people who just hate trans people for no reason. So again, it's sort of this vague shield, like we just want free speech about gender topics. He's not going full mask off, but it's like he tore half of the mask off. Let's keep listening.
So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action.
This is going to be bad. I mean, if you've been on Facebook over the past few years, which I'm sure you have, there's already so much AI slop content. I mean, I know people's grandparents who genuinely can't tell the difference between an AI photo and a real photo, and the AI photo will be Trump carrying 2 children, and for some reason Trump only has 1 leg in the photo, and I've seen my friends' grandparents repost this, like, this is my guy. So, come on. So I'll leave it at that. That was a solid breakdown between this, the Reddit post, and my news hit. I'll cover this more as it develops, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys, and peace out.